Sanje Kunji Chini Shizu, Zichin Yishina, Rinjan Beyang. Tubten Shinda Kiro Rinpoche, Bemandonga, Limbara So and So, good evening, everybody. Very happy to be here in New York. Something looks like a spaceship. I've never given talk in a spaceship before. So, I'm really happy to be here because many people that I met before when I came with Khyentse Rinpoche in 1970, 75, and then few times after. So many old friends. So we are all, getting a little bit older. And here in audience, I see maybe like 4 different generations of Buddhists in America. So I'm a little bit not sure how to talk, because some of you are maybe more senior than me in studying Buddhism, and some of you are quite new. I myself I don't travel much giving teaching or lecture in the West. Mostly I'm staying in Nepal and Bhutan, taking care of the monastery. And I think I spent 20 years of my life with the previous Khyentse Rinpoche, like he mentioned, since I was 3 maybe, till 25 when Khyentse Rinpoche passed away. Then after that, searching for the reincarnation and preparing for the arrival of the Khyentse Rinpoche's reincarnation. And once we found the reincarnation, another 20 years serving the young Khyentse Rinpoche. So I feel very, very fortunate to be able to spend a long time with such a great master like Jamji Khyentse Rinpoche for 20 years. And being with Khyentse Rinpoche, that I got chance to meet so many of the great masters, like his only 16 Karmapa, the 14th Dalai Lama, and many, many senior masters. They always come and visit, or Khyentse Rinpoche go and visit them. So I always feel very, very fortunate and very lucky. And same, many of our friends here, many of the senior students. I think we should always not to forget that how lucky we are to meet such great masters, realized masters who came from Tibet and then all the way to America and to teach. So many of us very, very fortunate to be able to meet them. I sometimes tell Western friends that why Tibet had so many great masters is because if you look in the Tibetan sort of situation in Tibet, out of the 6 million Tibetans, more than 10% Tibetans became monks and lamas and practicing. So out of which, then Tibet produced many, many great masters. Just like Brazilian, out of so many population, they come up the world's best 12 football player. So I think in Tibet, all the population is out of maybe all the population, more than 10% focusing on practicing, trying to achieve some kind of inner realization. So therefore, Tibet produced not the world football champion, but the world kind of great spiritual masters. So many of them came out of Tibet and come to West, and we are very fortunate to meet them and receive teaching. And many of you, I think, still continue to practice this precious lineage that we receive. So, to tell you a little bit about Rabjam Khyentse Rinpoche, maybe some of you maybe didn't meet him, or some of the younger people maybe heard about Rinpoche or read about Khyentse Rinpoche. So Rabjam Khyentse Rinpoche is one of these Tibet's great master, among the many Lama, one of the great master who studied with 50 different teachers from the 4 major schools of Tibetan Buddhism. And then himself not only studied, but he put into practice by staying more than 20 years in cave and retreat, like that. So Khyentse Rinpoche, somehow, when he left Tibet, he brought the precious lineage and all the teachings. So nowadays, recently I met one Tibetan kind of researcher. He told me about this story of one of the Khyentse Rinpoche's teacher from the Gelug school, one very well-known geshe. And this geshe, he has predicted that Khyentse Rinpoche's Dharma activity will flourish one-third of the world. I never heard that prediction before. It was just recently in Queens, Jackson Heights area. I heard this story. So it's very true, you know. I think everywhere we look, somehow Khyentse Rinpoche's the lineage or teaching, and also Khyentse Rinpoche being a non-sectarian, Jime, the other day I mentioned a little bit. He had a responsible of upholding all the 4 schools of Tibetan Buddhist tradition. So he was very much, when he traveled since 1975. Wherever he traveled, he always tried to transmit whatever lineage or whatever tradition they follow. Either it's from Gelug tradition, Saja tradition, then of course Nyingma and Kaji. Whichever tradition they follow, Rinpoche will teach according to their wishes and their kind of practice. So Rinpoche sort of, I feel that Khyentse Rinpoche like one of the main kind of life force, can I say, of the Buddha Dharma, especially the Tibetan Buddhist tradition in the world. And some of maybe for the young people, young children I see, if you like to know about Khyentse Rinpoche, he's physically very, very big. Even in America, he's big. Even when he comes to America, he's very tall. At one point, one young child came to see Rinpoche when he was in residence, and this child came with his mother. And when the child saw Khyentse Rinpoche, he was so fascinated that he told his mother, "Look, mommy, giant man, giant man." And mother felt a little bit embarrassed because it sounds a little bit rude, you know. But she couldn't make him stop because he was so fascinated with Rinpoche's physical appearance. So, of course, not only inner realization, but even outer physical appearance. It's very, very magnificent. It's almost like a mountain, like that. And like in the movie, his son Dalai Lama said, his body well built, very big, but always smiling, like that. So his presence was very, very strong. So when you meet spiritual master like that, and you somehow feel spiritually connected, then I think maybe we can say kind of inner realization sort of naturally comes, because the presence is so strong. And many of you, I'm sure, have an experience like that. So like that. And today here, the subject is some poem that Khyentse Rinpoche composed. So Khyentse Rinpoche always had a time for everybody. So he would always write letters to his friends or his students, from very high lama, very high-ranking masters, lamas, to a very simple, ordinary guy. And he always write them those days. No WeChat, no email. Even fax was something very modern in those days. So he had time to write. So when he write letter, there's always advice how to practice, and according to that, students' kind of capacity. So I think this, it doesn't really mention the name, but I think it was also written letter to somebody, I think, who might have asked advice on the mind teaching, I think, like that. So of course, mind teaching very important, but I'm not talking from my experience, but since I've been with Khyentse Rinpoche since very young age, so I hear the Khyentse Rinpoche giving teaching. I've seen how people practice and all that. So personally, no experience, but I think, of course, mind teaching is the most important, because I think the essence of all the Buddha's teaching, it is to, how do you say, subdue the mind. But since sometimes we say in Tibetan, something so close, something so near, that you won't see like your eyelashes. I don't know whether in the West you use this quote or not, but in Tibetan we say, because our eyelash is so close, so we don't really see them. So you need a kind of, in order to really get the teaching of mind, normally people will go through lots of practice, preliminary practice, Nyandro practice, and from the Nyandro, I think to become to do a good practice, or good practice, to become a good practitioner, I think that why we practice, I think that's very important. Not just because it's fashionable, or not just because it sounds good, or not just as kind of temporary relaxing. The purpose why we want to practice Dharma has to, with the reason why we want to practice has to be because of what we call the 4 changes of mind, or 4 thoughts. 4 thoughts that turn the mind into Dharma. Then, precious human life. So much potential that we have. Then, of course, in the traditional classic teaching, there's all this reflection of now we in the traditional teaching that Tanjo Nyepakawa, the 5 things.
8 freedoms.
Anyway, 18. I don't know how to say it in English. Yeah, Tarwaje and Jorwachu. So all these things is to reflect on, to see how precious human life. So sometimes we can also use from the modern kind of thinking, that if you look at the evolution of the modern science, that how the human race started from being a cell, slowly to a fish, and then slowly to, I'm sure more of you study in the science. And then when I sometimes think, there are like millions of chances that we not become a human being, that we become a mushroom or we become a tree. So of course, mushroom and tree don't have the intelligence that we have. So I think from that evolution point of view, I think we can also look at how precious human life is, because we have so much intelligence, so much potential. Then also people who have this precious human life, so how many of us really utilize it properly? many people somehow take it for granted. There's a kind of a joke. One Tibetan Lama was teaching this precious human life to a Chinese student. And he said, oh, the precious human life is very rare. And the Chinese student said, the Lama, you've never been to China. So it's not like that, I think. Not just being a human, but someone who wants to give some meaning to one's life. Very rare. And those who want to give meaning to one's life, finding the right path. So I think those things feel, by thinking or contemplating those things, then we feel how precious human life. So this is number one. And then number two, I think what we call the impermanence, Chometawa, contemplating on impermanence. Everything changes, nothing is permanent. And impermanence is not always a bad news, because many people think impermanence is bad news, but impermanence is that's a natural of how things are. Rich become poor, poor become rich, lazy become diligent, diligent become lazy, everything changes. So that is how the things are. So contemplating on impermanence, I think even in the sutras and many teachings, it says that one of the most important, and especially for the people who wants to practice Dharma. Then believing in understanding law of the cause and effect. Everything has a cause, everything has an effect. So believing, believing Marita Yichi. Trust in law of karma. Then the suffering of the samsara. So all those things. I think the suffering of samsara, we all gathered here, we have some sense of understanding of that. Then we look for some kind of way to be out of the suffering of the samsara. So I think those four changes of mind, even though we heard this so many times, or even though it sounds quite kind of easy intellectually, I think we really have to put into our heart, and it has to come from our heart. Like the story in Padur Rinpoche, story where when he was teaching the four thoughts to his student, and Padur Rinpoche is one of the great Tibetan yogi master, who's like the best example of the practitioner who lived in somewhere near Dzogchen monastery. And Rinpoche would stay in the cave, and the student also stay in the cave. And then when there is no appointment or there is no timing, when the time is right, the master would come out and call for the student, hey, where you are? And the student will come up from the bush or wherever he was meditating. If you've been to Tibet or you have seen the Tibetans, then you can imagine, especially in Shechen area, it's a big cloud like that coming out. And they would sit on the rock. And Padur Rinpoche would say one sentence, precious Tanjur Dinishin Dunya Baka, the precious human life is very rare. And then teacher would cry, and the student would cry. So then they cry, the teaching finished. So then next day again, the Lama calls and student comes. So like that. So sometimes we don't need too much blah, blah, blah talking. I think main thing, it has to come really from the heart, or heart
from the heart,
can say,
yes.
Like that. So these things are, I think, very important in order to root the Dharma into ourselves. Can we say root?
No.
Rooting the Dharma into ourselves. And I think in the West now, it's not really new now, maybe almost 50 years since Buddha Dharma came to West. And I'm sure now the Dharma is really like rooted into the West. In the Western students' mind. When we first came with the robes walking around in New York, more people think we are Hare Krishna. And when Khyentse Rinpoche was coming out, I remember the immigration officer says, "Look, big Hare Krishna is coming." So those days, Buddha Dharma not well known, not much known in the West. And now maybe the Hare Krishnas, people might say, "Oh, Buddhist monk." So like that. So gradually. In those days, of course, many of the senior students, you might remember that many kind of people looking for some kind of Asian, exotic, things like that. And many students are hippies, don't want to do much, looking for some kind of levitation or something like that. So that's how it started. And masters, our senior masters really work hard to bring the Dharma in. I was joking with my friend, one of the Rinpoche who came around the same time of Shechen Rabjam Rinpoche and those Chime Rinpoche. I said, those days you have advantage or disadvantage. Disadvantage is you have to teach from zero to the Western students because they really don't know anything. And the advantage is you could have said anything, nobody would have known. And now it's not like that. Everybody can Google and then say. So like that, now I think Dharma is in the West for a long time, and I think that really the Buddha Dharma is not just a kind of superficial. Many of the students really serious. So many of you really, I think this kind of four changes, the purpose, giving way to give meaning to life, really is rooted into your heart. And then now we already have second, third generation Buddhist followers. And then mind teaching is given to sometimes some people who would ask, who like too old to go through the yondros or too, did long time retreat and then like now they want kind of final advice from teacher. Then they would ask just simple mind teaching like that. And then teacher would say a few words, and then the student will go and practice, come back, report, and again, like that. Again, few words, and go and practice, and come back and report. So that's how normally taught the mind teaching. And it is also the introduction to the mind is not really kind of hidden somewhere that only give to the some students. The teaching is always there in the teachings. Even like there are certain texts that we recite in Guru Rinpoche's Sondep aspiration, supplication prayer. And there's a very, very clearly mentioned this kind of practice. But only sometime then we sort of just read it through. We don't really pay attention, or maybe we are not ready to understand. Like example in the 7 branch, 7 chapter Guru Rinpoche prayer, there's a so whatever appears, just let it appear without clinging to it. Let it subside. So this prayer is always there. And also when many of you receive the empowerment, during the 4th empowerment, there's always introduction to the mind, always there. So I think this is not something that it is only given to some people. It's always given. But I think the special kind of what we call the pith instruction or whatever, when the time is right, and I think Master says few things and then you somehow actualize or get it. There are some stories, again with the Patur Rinpoche, connected with Patur Rinpoche, that some incidents that Patur Rinpoche's teacher, he sort of hit him on the head and called him a mad dog, and then that sort of wake him up. Not always hitting. Some other cases, no hitting also. Patur Rinpoche and his student, Nyosho Lungtok, sitting in the meadow of Dzogchen near this snow mountain. And Patrul Rinpoche, I think must be in the evening, he said, "Can you see the stars in the sky?" Then his students said, "Yes." "Can you hear the dogs barking in the village?" Student says, "Yes." So, what is the nature of your mind? And that's all it takes. So I think a lot of maturation, huh? Preparation, maturation, I think. Then we will kind of actualize or realize this kind of thing. So speaking too much, I think doesn't really make much difference. It's like maybe I'm telling you how to ride a bicycle. It's like that. So here in the poem that Khyentse Rinpoche wrote, so here I will ask Sean to translate. So if I make a mistake, I can blame him. Semji semla tebe se tongju mechang salewa macho kuyang lodena ramba maying zamdu ja seta ta lunga yesum nan zocha ta nga sem chang yo restro an tende inde ka so ta chi tajin shugana jing sem mandurwe gi tapdi ane sanje gi chu yongsu zobati ane sem dewe gi tapdi na songja res.
When we think of the human experience, we're a composite of body, mind, and with speech running between the two. And from within these three, body, speech, and mind, the mind is the most important. And with regard to the subduing of the mind, or the subjugation of the unruly emotions and thoughts, etc., that run wild in our mind, then the Buddha gave numerous teachings.
Tinji ta zo sem do tabla mangbo song yoba yena ta de ne zo dirba yena ta ni sem gi ngol rang zo ta gu yoba de chila pha ta wa mayimba ta ni sem gi na la sem ji sem la te ba se tang khen ji sem sing so su ji tang ta ja gi sem sing ji ni ta de ba yo ma de yena ya ane sem ko rang khan nang do ta ne sem ko rang gi de sem ko rang ngol te ba res.
So as I mentioned, the Buddha gave innumerable teachings, all of which have the sole purpose of subduing or subjugating the unruly mind. Now, if one were to kind of put all of these together, or to combine all of these in a very simple way, then one shouldn't look outside of oneself for a method or a means in dependence upon which one can subdue the mind. Rather, one should look within oneself. So here then the first line of the poem reads, "When mind is watching mind." As such, rather than looking outside of oneself, one must choose to look within. One will find then that mind and the one who is supposedly watching mind are not separate, rather they are one and the same.
Tongju mechang sale was ta sem sing de la kado da yebtang de dus chin tongju yorbe garitang yoresna dindabuju yoresn do yebtang kado yo mare de yinayang 지금 지무 팁스 마인비기 지 살차단 템바직 된지 ngol so taya de res.
So when one kind of looks within, then looking at the mind, there is nothing to see. It is vividly clear. So when one tries to look at mind, there is nothing, there is no color, neither is there a shape upon which to focus. Rather, when mind is watching mind, there is nothing to see. But it isn't that there is something obscured or that there is something hidden away. Rather, the nature of one's mind then is something that is vividly clear.
Tati gandes chen tarang tapshe jabo gande insewa ina tene macho bas ta dele ji samnon ramen ramangbo tangchene ji johan jamne namdo sha nyeng mare samyan rabo da ji dig mare samyan rabo tende ge samno gi tene joha jaba maimba macho ba kuyangbo chen hlobo chen deba tenganglas.
So how to do that? How to then kind of rest within the nature of mind and see then this natural luminosity of mind? We're advised then in the third line that one should rest naturally. And how should that rest occur? It should be uncontrived. Here then, one shouldn't confuse oneself, nor should one kind of stir up the mind, but rather one should simply allow things to settle. One shouldn't give rise to an emotion, neither should one give rise to a chain of thoughts, but rather remain without contriving the mind, free and at ease.
Rambab maing zam jans. Te telata zojo kaya majevi de te yan te sem maing wa zam jing ngana ten de de baris.
As such, when one allows thought to rest naturally and everything becomes still, becomes quiet, then one should be alert. If distraction occurs, if one becomes distracted, if thought arises that would kind of ruin one's meditation, one should recognize that and simply let it go. And remain, as is written here, naturally, resting naturally, and without distraction.
So I think when we do this kind of looking into your mind, I think first thing we have to forget about all the intellectual understanding of what is mind, or philosophical ideas that we have put into our brain, or even as scientific ideas of how the brain and all these cells work. So because this intellectual understanding can affect the actual understanding of the mind, I think. So therefore you should be a little bit like a young child, or forget all these things. I didn't realize, but I was told by Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche to get the mind instruction from his only 16 Karmapa. And I was only about 7 years old, or 7 or 6 years old. And they would sit next to each other. And then Karmapa would tell me, okay, tomorrow you have to tell me what your minds look like. Then I go and think all night, my mind is like a mountain. And go back and I report next day. And both of them, good laugh. So they were sort of waiting for my next reply. Well, every time I come with very strange ideas. So I think, like child's mind, we don't have so much concept. Sort of just pure. Then look back. Tela namto chichuya manga masim rangote. Sharwe shila matipar chungna shang tekale ta namdo chawati namdo di ta tenesin gobjang namdo tama sharwada tene ngon zin tu goyoris.
Whatever thought occurs from that state, without stopping or analyzing, watch its very nature. Its arising doesn't obscure the absolute nature. Whatever occurs, relax right there. So here then, when we are trying to remain within then the natural state, the uncontrived natural state, then if thought occurs, if emotion erupts, if you will, at that time it is imperative to initially recognize that a thought occurrence.
Manga semra rango deus, ta ji namdo shana lamsang tin te ngola pa. Ji namdo ji sharsong samsam ji ngosin tin namdo te ngola ta.
When the thought arises, as we read in the second line, one shouldn't stop it, neither should one analyze it. Rather, when the thought arises, one should recognize it. Recognizing the thought, then one should turn one's attention towards its nature, and as such relax or rest then within the empty nature of mind. As such, without stopping or analyzing, watch the thought's very nature.
Sharwe shila mati para chuna shalyang tekal loos. Chidang namdo shar sona ji korang ngola dibge rebesna dibge mare namdo lobur bachi shalyang yore. Dibge mare te indi korang shi namdo korang ngola te jabayina nang korang jingi pa jung robayin ye robayin tene ye batikana pa shajeres.
So the arising of thought within the experience of resting within the uncontrived nature then, the arising of thought doesn't obscure the absolute nature of mind. By recognizing thought, thinking of looking into its nature then, whatever occurs, whatever thought manifests, whatever emotion it might be, recognizing the nature of that thought or emotion, then one should simply relax into its nature, and naturally the thought will subside.
So quite often Khyentse Rinpoche used to give an example of throwing a stone at the dog. If you throw a stone at a dog, then dog will chase the stone. So when dog chases a stone, you can throw many more stones at the dog. Then if you throw a stone at a lion, the lion will look back at you. And then you cannot throw the second stone. So like that, I think when one thought arises, if you follow the thought, then one thought will chain reaction, lead to another thought, like many, many thoughts. So when the one thought, like one stone to the lion look back, and then the thought will sort of disappear. So, Debi Jesu Mandangshi Maung Dogun Dimasu, Tekara Chinu Tawa, the Jisasundra Shesutas, then Debi Namdo, Chikche, and Nije or some Kazan Chikche, Niche, and Debi Namdos, Chikche. Then the Maung Benamdo said that Chikche, Niche, some in Dinmasus.
Don't follow thoughts about the past. Don't anticipate thoughts about the future. Directly transcend the external world. That is called the four parts without three. As such, one shouldn't dwell in the past, thinking about things that one has done in whatever form that may take. Similarly, then, one shouldn't anticipate the future, thinking about making too many plans and reflecting on what one should or shouldn't do at a particular time in the future, etc. One is advised to avoid these two. And to then directly transcend the external world. So here when we reflect using the 3 times, then we've spoken about not dwelling in the past, and similarly then about anticipating the future. Directly transcending the external world means to not become involved in that which is in front of us at the very moment, in any given time. As such, we think about overcoming then the thoughts of the 3 times. This then is the 4th part without 3.
Then namdong washing ang jangna jenga neba meijin nang ya shila pene me chunyi rangbab jemba was. Tan namdo de kantis chegorasana chik. Shal minyen sambe kiten kaya tin jigyo mar kainsana chik namdo de panyang ka jadi tela yang kapar chabe namdo chik jigyo imbares.
If you maintain the recognition of thoughts, you will feel that they do not truly begin, remain, or end. Though you notice them, they have no effect on your true nature. That is the bare natural state, the way it is. As such, when we think about the recognition of thoughts, here then it's essential that we recognize that the kind of empty nature of thoughts. As such, really when we look at a thought, it doesn't truly kind of begin or come into existence.
다 셰돌라더니 니마샤란데 가서 자샤르나 jinki 데 젠당 체용데 로버 남도와 남도 로버와 제게 여마도 시 호랑이 모올라 남도 예네 제와 요 말레스.
So for example, if we take a crystal and we put it in sunlight, for example, then almost instantaneously kind of rainbow colors will kind of reflect from the stone. So similarly then, when we think about mind, when it is put before various objects, etc., it is almost as if instantaneously thoughts kind of arise. However, when the condition for their arisal, in the example of the crystal, the light is absent, the rainbow-colored light is naturally absent as well. So similarly, when the object that gives, or the idea to give rise to a continuity of thought is missing, then it is as if the thought were never there. It's not an inherent or integral part of the nature of one's mind.
남도 지코라인 걸 남도 잔이 제 만용와 인데 가서더니 담보 제와매바 담보 잔이 제 만용와 인데 가서더니 탈 맞제바지 가버 잡아 마인데 가봐매바 Tene Jawadan Gapa Meba in the Kausa, the Neba Meba, Jenga Neba Meba. Inayan Tene Majin to Nawa, Yimbatitene Hakovachis.
So the arisal of a particular thought is not an integral part or an inherent part. It's not one and the same, if you will, with the natural state of mind itself. So if a thought isn't an inherently existent part of one's mind, then its ending or its cessation can similarly not be an integral or inherent part of mind. As such, what to talk about here, it's remaining. So then the question is, do thoughts not exist at all? They exist, but they don't truly exist.
They in the Shi Kurang, Zani Kurang, Trumanyo in the Kausu, then the Pembadan Neba, Namdo Sharvegi, Nujabata, Namdo Masharvegi, Shi Kurang, Namdo Sharvegi, Nebata, Masharve, Pemba Meba in the Shi Kurang, Penny Meba, Telatini, Chuni, Rambab, Jembas, Mindabares.
And so, for example, when we think about then the way that there is no inherent kind of arising or cessation of thoughts, as integral to then the nature of one's mind, then with regard to mind itself cannot be neither benefited nor harmed by the arisal or then the cessation of these seemingly tangible, seemingly integral parts of our being, or these thoughts, if you will. As such, we can notice the thoughts arising then, but then they will have no effect on on our true nature. As such, the advice is given then to simply rest in the true nature of mind.
Rikdong Sangha Jain di Nyamji Kinto Lamchena Trubarando Tobi the Nyaba Tobar Chance, that Tetabuki Chictes Rangi Sem Dingla, the Nyaba Davaji, Nyamyon Davaji, Nyaba in a Tatipa Junchong and the Keshimashures.
So this then is the experience of the bare natural state, the way it is now. If you take that empty awareness that is open and carefree as the path, all the time, both during formal meditation practice and also afterward, in the post-meditation time, you will quickly and surely acquire a confident realization that confusion is freed by itself.
In the Kausota, Tetabuki Nyamyon di Riton Sankar Jain di Nyamjang Kapso, Tangaranzo Gom Japcheni, Nyamlin Chiva Kapsota, Semon Chomare. That the Nyamja Maim Big in the Jet of Java Kapso and to Jundo to the young to come to Jig. Semol days, Jig to Kanant Cornetin, Diadita, Lam to Chevi, tapped in the race.
So here then, there are two things to bear in mind. So the empty kind of awareness, that is then the formal kind of meditation practice, if you will, simply to remain within that bare natural state, the way it is, open and carefree, and that's our kind of spiritual path, if you will. But when it comes to post-meditation period, the afterward, if you will, of the formal meditation practice, then it is essential to, at all times and in all situations, as much as one is possible, to look at then the nature of mind. Look at when thoughts arise, to simply look at their nature. And this is similar then to the formal meditation practice where one sustains the empty awareness, the nature of the mind. So as such, during the post-meditation period, as much as one is able, one looks at the nature of one's mind.
So something to do when you get stuck in the New York traffic. That in the moon is a traffic jam down, elevator go down, and when it's a bus go down, number go down to the couple of Chicana to Cordox diet to Colela or Izimiji Kambaji Duncha, the Chikoy Omaros.
So I'm not really joking here. When you are stuck in the New York traffic, or when you're in a kind of elevator, or when you're on a bus, when you're traveling on an airplane, etc., it's very easy simply to look within, to look at mind. Of course, when I say kind of meditate like this, to look within, to look at the nature of mind, I'm not suggesting that you kind of have to try to kind of sit cross-legged and kind of straighten your spine and put your hands in the meditation posture, etc. Not at all. Here one just simply looks within.
Tene indi ta tentebu nyamlen jundu nyamsulen nyamlen chewa ina anen trubege na wande tamje demba trubama ba ranjing gitani chik tron robe gitani nyeba nye segorbe ta topic dingdi tene nyurdu toba cheba yins.
And as such, mention is made here then that if you if you continue this practice as much as you're able, putting a great deal of effort into it, then you will quickly and surely acquire a confident realization that confusion then is freed by itself. So the confusion then of grasping at the seemingly true existence of things will naturally be kind of set free by itself.
Draws lama rangi sem yerme tui sewe nga nyambara jaje temeche nyedun chukyu rangshal taas.
It is very helpful then, we read, to mingle your mind inseparably with your teachers. By settling in equipoise within that state, developing faith and devotion, you will meet the natural face of Dharmakaya.
I always tell some kind of newcomer who never had an opportunity to meet like my lineage. From my lineage, it's like Shechen Khyentse Rinpoche. Of course, different lineage, they all have very realized master. So those who didn't have opportunity to meet those masters, so I always say, when you say this mix,
mingle
your mind with Guru. Always, to my people who come to me and my friends, I always recommend Shechen Khyentse Rinpoche. Because physically now, not there, but like in the movie he saw, Dalai Lama said, spiritual energy or whatever, the lineage is very much alive. So we can always have this kind of Guru. No, I don't think it's really necessary to have someone who's physically there. So to give teaching, to transmit lineage, okay, younger lamas, lineage holders can do, but the root Guru or source of inspiration, from my lineage, like Shechen Khyentse Rinpoche, I always say. And nowadays, thanks to the modern technology, we have a lot of videos, photos. We know how they look like, we know how they sound like, So very much we can still connect. Someone like Longchen Ba, Jime Lingba, or these great masters, we don't have much idea how, unless looking at the painting Thangka. And Thangka also, each one looks different. so now we have this, photos and videos. I think very helpful. So spiritually, still not life, doesn't matter, I think. Like his own Dalai Lama says, spiritual energy very much live, lineage is very much live. You can get the instructions, teachings, empowerment, but source inspiration like Khyentse Rinpoche. So, I think also in Nyingma and Kagyu tradition, maybe in other tradition also, but always there is end of the Guru Yoga, the dissolving the three syllable letters from Guru's forehead, Guru's throat, Guru's heart. Syllable letter Om, Ah, Hung radiates three lights dissolving into one's forehead, throat, and heart center. And then purifies our body, speech, mind, accumulating, purifies. And then at the end, the three lights comes dissolving into one's forehead, throat, and heart, and purifies subtle obscuration. And then the Guru dissolves into one's heart. So that's where I think what we're describing here, mingle one's mind. So little understanding, if you can gain from some practice or lots of meditating, then that moment I think that's the time to sort of looking at the mind. And if you have some experience, then understand that is what we call the inner Guru. Tui sewe ngang nyambar rajin temeche. So within this, you naturally feel very strong devotion. Nyeden chokyu rangshata. So this is ultimate Dharmakaya Guru, or seeing the face of the Dharmakaya. Oh, that was English. Sorry. Excuse me.
Shall I say in Tibetan?
Huh?
Shall I say in Tibetan?
Okay. Then 대송 도와네. 제발 메타 년중당 장미 술팀 맥신 송 sabdening bonanjuji tseji zamba yarmato. So we should never kind of carry away in kind of high view. We should hear in the last sentence. Always meditate on impermanent, have a renunciation, and especially the conduct, law of the conduct, law of the karma.
Karmic law.
Huh?
Effort.
If you are ordained monk or nun, then very strictly follow the Vinaya, law and conduct. Then if you are a lay practitioner, I think the law of the karma we have to follow. Because sometimes view is very high, and then we jump in the view, and then we fall down. So I think view has to be vast, and our conduct has to be very thoroughly.
Very fine.
Very fine. So, sabdening bonanjuji tseji yaro mandarso, tipe masita sabegi, ten sabui, and the rangiti kasota ning tseji to nyamlen chishos.
As such, especially guard the continuity of impermanence, renunciation, and pure discipline, like your own eyes. Never diminish your one-pointed diligence in the heart of the matter, the essential yoga of profound meaning. As such, it is imperative at all times and in all situations to apply single-pointed diligence at the heart of the matter, to essentialize or to actualize then this essential yoga of profound meaning.
Tesam gumsum pemayi jiro tartuki tenla pepa yuldi yin ningbe twendi ningruche. So Khyentse Rinpoche always emphasize on Töba means hearing the Dharma, Samba means contemplating, Gomba means meditation. So always Khyentse Rinpoche recommends here also like that. I think we should listen to Dharma, contemplate it, and then try to put into practice. So if we just listen to so many dharmas and then we don't contemplate, we don't think about, then it becomes my diet book. I have so many diet books and I'm still quite heavy. This is, I think, happens quite a lot with some of what we call dharma bumps. We collect so many books and attend all the teachings, and our character never change. Then it's like my diet book. So maybe you don't need too many diet books, but one good diet book, and if you follow it, you will lose weight. So like that. Teke menga disi di jebi chutin tambandi, nyasang tongpa namkatara chela timbe chuchurchis. 다 되다 보기 추기 님보다 보기 다 되지다 보디 안에 제가 투제비 제도 표가 있어.
May this delightful sacred offering cloud of essential pith instructions cause you to gain realization of the definitive secret that is like space. So here then, this is described as the kind of quintessence of the Dharma, the essential pith instructions.
Jebi Chutin Tambadi, I think, which is writing this to some kind of higher Lama, the way he described it, it's like an offering. Then in Yasanga Topa, then Namkata Wujing, then Chirangi Tula, Chuma Shochings.
So if you put this into practice, then this particular instruction, if engaged diligently, will cause you then to gain realization of the definitive secret, which is likened here to space.
So I think that's it.
So what is it that you recognize when you recognize the nature of the mind? That's our question.
I don't know whether I have what you call actualize, recognize or not. That's up to my teacher to decide. But normally we don't share that. I think when you look at the sky, you say you see a sky, but what you really see is really right. So some teaching says something like that. Yes.
He said he'll tell you later. Okay, Rinpoche, here's another question. Do you have any advice on how to apply this practice to strong emotions and sensations in the body, such as fear? Same as thoughts, or are they different?
Sorry?
Is the strong emotion
Yes.
and this body sensation the same as a thought? Should it be dealt with the same as a thought, or is it different?
Well, I think emotions is part of the what we call namtok or thoughts. So we need a training. I think gom, when you say gom, it means familiarization, I think, literally translation. So the practice, I think we have to get quite familiar with it. We have to do again and again. So the more you kind of get a little bit experience into resting in the state nature of mind, then there will be less problem with all the less problem which relate with your thoughts. So emotion is also thoughts. I have some friends who didn't do much practice, and then suddenly they had some emotional problem, and then comes to me and say how to meditate. So then it's difficult when you're already like ups and downs. So I think we have to, when everything's sort of okay, we have to practice. And once we really get quite familiar with this practice, then emotion will not bother so much. Quite a good example is like riding a horse. So if you're very good at riding a horse, you become very balanced riding a horse, then no matter how much the horse jumps, it cannot throw you out. So that previous training. And not without much previous training, you just ride on a wild horse and then you will be thrown out. It happened to me in Tibet once. Quite painful. So I think what we need is previously practice, and then get familiar with it. And then naturally, relate with your mind. Problems related with the mind will be less and disappear.
This question is, if we let our thoughts and emotions just be, then, and we just stay and watch, does that mean we will then do nothing in life and be very passive or numb?
Passive, vegetable. Is it? I have a friend Rinpoche told me a story. One guy went to see a doctor with a carrot in his nose and banana in his ear. And he went to see a doctor and said, "Doctor, I have a problem." And doctor says, "Yes, you have an eating disorder." I think we are talking something like a vegetable, because when you talk about the meditation, there is I don't know how to describe in English, maybe Sean can do, Chingwa, Mukpa, Tipa, Gueba. So there are many kind of where you can fall into. So therefore you need a good instruction, step by step, we have to learn it. So it could be sometimes Chingwa, then maybe become vegetable.
Drowsiness.
Then Mukpa, maybe you are
Dullness.
sleeping. Tipa, so there are so many the wrong you could go. So therefore,
Erroneous path.
yes. So this needs to be some skill master and then like guidance. So
when one begins to practice meditation, there are a number of erroneous paths that one can fall into. So it's essential to kind of clear these up before one begins a kind of serious like a retreat or something. As such, one should be able to recognize a dullness of mind. Similarly then, a kind of a blankness, kind of daydreamy state of mind. Similarly then, lethargy, etc. All of these should be recognized, and as such, when you experience them, then you should apply the respective antidotes so as to clear them, so as to be able to sustain or continue your meditation practice.
Rinpoche, how can peace abiding, I assume they mean shamatha meditation or single-pointed meditation, help young school children? And how can children practice meditation? How can children practice?
What was the first one?
How can shamatha or single-pointed meditation help young school kids?
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. I think it's very helpful. I think. I don't know how to explain properly, but Matthew Ricard, the Dhamma brother, my Dhamma brother, who's also a scientist, they had lots of research done on how the children can meditate and use the one-pointedness or shamatha by using teddy bear, small teddy bear, for very young children. And I think they did some research and keeping the teddy bear on the chest. Maybe they are lying down and keeping, and then the breathing in and out, the teddy bear goes up and down or something. So they said a very much good result. Good result. And even I think once we visit one of the school in New York, I don't remember which one. Okay. Yes, Dwight School. A long time ago, I forgot. So we talked a little bit to the children. Of course, in America, you don't teach religion. But we just say, stay. It's okay, no? We just said, like, in the beginning, just stay 5 minutes or 3 minutes. Just stay quietly without doing anything. Don't really teach like meditation, but just sit quietly in it. And they said it was really, really cool. And they said really helpful. So like that, I think many people, they use very, very helpful because they sultim things in share up.
Ethics.
Sultim things in share up. And things in tilla chebagi ani share up pegi bachi suayoba.
If one has an ethical kind of basis, thereupon the development of concentration is relatively straightforward, and there within the development of wisdom within the person comes quite naturally.
So maybe, I'm sure these days now many teachers, they talk about the science meditation. So I'm sure you must have heard, but one thing I can tell you is that because when we meditate or visualization or meditation, you can't really see how we are progressing because we are so used to seeing some result, like a stock market up and down. So we don't really see. But when they test in the lab, they can really see that even 1 week of some one-pointed meditation, you really have big change in your mind. So since we can't really tangible, then we don't see. So I have a story. We have a retreat center in Nepal, and we sent 2 of the monks who just finished the retreat to a lab in medicine for the science research. And then we sent a 3rd monk, who was the administrator of the monastery in a place called Bihar in Bodh Gaya, where there's a big mass there. So these 3 monks went to the lab, but we forgot to mention the 2 was the retreatant and 1 is not retreatant. But we received an email from the scientist saying, what's wrong with the 3rd one? So it really, of course, 3 year definite changes, but even 1 week, we try meditation, tremendous changes, progress. But because we can't really feel or see it, and weight, you can go on a scale, you can see how much pound you lose, but here you cannot see. But there's definitely big changes. If you're really interested, maybe go in the lab and you will find the results. So I think this one point in his mind, really, little bit meditation makes big changes in your mind.
That leads to a question maybe a lot of people are asking now, which is that mindfulness meditation has become quite popular in the West as a standalone, not necessarily affiliated with a complete course of Buddhist study. Do you think that's a good thing? It's being practiced in corporations and sports teams, fitness centers, yoga studios?
First of all, anything it helps is a good thing, I think. And also with... What's that? Okay. But is it a Buddhism then? I don't know, Ruwa. But yes, I think because it sort of opens the door to the people to get the taste of meditation, yeah. So people maybe will just do that. Also very useful, helpful. That's good. But then maybe through that, then people want to go deeper into it. Then we must go into the traditional way of practicing and all that. So yes, I think it's very good that gives kind of people opportunity who maybe don't feel ready to go into deeper practice, but still benefit from the meditation, the technique or method from the Buddhist tradition. Yes.
Perhaps we should close with one final question, or how's our time? We have time? Is it okay to do a few more?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a very profound question.
Mm-hmm.
Deep.
Okay.
What advice do you have for people who get sleepy when they're sitting?
Coffee? Maybe I can share this with you. It's a story of my friend Matthew. When he was a young scientist and very interested in the Dharma, very enthusiastic, and he came to Darjeeling to meet his first teacher, Khyentse Rinpoche. And he was sitting there, and then he saw the monks doing prayer and falling asleep. And he was so amazed. Say, how can they sleep during the prayer? But later on, he's number one sleeper in the puja. Of course, I think most of the Buddhist practice, you can always way to wake yourself. You can get up and walk a little bit here and there, and then sit and meditate. You can use any kind of method so that you don't feel completely like dullness. Even in Vinaya for the monks, when they're meditating, then it describes that they should make a small ball and make a string, and then you throw the ball, and doesn't really hit, but it comes, then you wake. So in the Vinaya, Buddha described that for the monks. So I'm sure you can use any method. And maybe in some Sakya tradition practice, then you're not supposed to get up, but that according to that particular sadhana. But otherwise, I think whatever it makes you feel awake. And also meditation, you don't feel comfortable on the floor, you can sit on the chair. So whatever is helpful to the mind to awaken oneself. In Tibet, sometimes the yogis, they have long hair. They tie the hair up in the ceiling. And then so if someone has a ponytail, you can use that.
harder for a monk, Rinpoche. That'd be difficult for a monk.
And I think a practitioner, I think it's very important to have a kind of good, especially the beginner, I think, to have a uplifting space or atmosphere. I remember once Shechen Khyentse Rinpoche was asked by a Bhutanese scholar, there is a place in Bhutan, and people say that place belongs to Longchenpa. And do you think that place belongs to Longchenpa? Because there's supposed to be 8 places of Longchenpa in Bhutan. And the first question Khyentse Rinpoche asks is that, does it have a good view? Does the place have a good view? And he said, no. Then Rinpoche said, can't be Longchenpa's place. So even great master like Longchenpa, if you look at the places he chooses to practice, it's always like high up mountain and very spacious. So I think that's also maybe he's not falling asleep, but it helps enhance the practice of the Dzogchen or nature of mind.
We have a few more. Rinpoche, isn't uncontrived also a concept? When you say practice uncontrived, is that also not a concept?
Contrived. I think the machupa is jaktabarwa. The namdo mare jaktab.
In the text, when it says one should rest uncontrived, free, and at ease in that state, it's not thinking about doing something in an uncontrived state. This is simply a way of resting. One rests one just drops everything, so there's no contrivance and remains within that state. It's not a question of thinking that one is practicing it in an uncontrived way. So maybe in Tibetan, when you say machuba, or in English it's translated here as uncontrived, maybe there's a slight kind of difference. In the Tibetan, it simply means to drop everything and simply kind of remain without any kind of, I'll have to use the English of course, but without any contrivance, to simply to be without that, resting in the natural state.
But this one is a good question, but there's one word that is unintelligible. So if the person who wrote it could just maybe shout out this word. Is pursuing blank incompatible with being good? Do you know who wrote this? Is pursuing something incompatible with being good? Business. There you go. Is pursuing business incompatible with Dharma? Is pursuing business, working with the business world, incompatible with the Dharma?
Jungle. Buddhism, I think, is very vast. You can be completely, leave all worldly thing and go into mountain. That is the best, ultimate. Then, being in the worldly life, doing business, but you can be an honest businessman. I think being a Buddhist. So it's not really contradictory. The question is it contradictory?
Can you do both?
Yes, I think so. Yes, very much. I think during Buddha's time, many of the kings, they're king, but still the benefactor of Buddha. So like that. So once Lama Shon was in Bhutan, and he went to a vegetable market, and then the vegetable seller, they're selling, what was it? Asparagus. So he says, he spoke in Tibetan, komo katsere, which means how much it is. And because his Tibetan is so good, she didn't realize he was a white man. So she said, 20 rupees, and she looked up and said, 50. That's not so good. Yeah. So you can be a honest, reasonable, right? A businessman. Then you're doing business to gain some kind of benefit or living, yeah. And also, there's of course one special about Buddhism is that the intention is very important. So even when you do a business, you can accumulate some, the worldly means. So eventually, I will be able to practice Dharma. Then it's also good, you know. So I think very much intention. And I sometimes say, switching off light is just same action. You switch off light, just switch off light in order to save your electricity bill. Then it's switching off light, but it's selfish. Switch off the light is to save the environment. Same time you save electricity bill. That's a little bit greater view. Save electricity bill, so for the sake of all sentient beings, then bodhisattva electricity. So I think very much depends on intention. That's why I think in Buddhism, mostly I think we have to check our intention in everything we do, even practice, even meditation. If we can add the attitude, meditation for the sake of all sentient beings, then become Mahayana, Vajrayana meditation. For meditation, even that mind, what was that fashionable one? Mindfulness? Even a mindfulness, fashionable one. Even the mindfulness, for the sake of all sentient beings, I think it can be, as a Buddhist practice. Mindfulness so that I can become a smarter businessman, it's a selfish. So it very much depends on our intention. Yes.
Rinpoche, there was a follow-up question on the last one, which was, what did Lama Shan say to the 50 rupees?
Did you give 50 or 20?
I went to the next woman.
Okay, that's a skillful means. Yeah.
There are a few questions that seem related, which is how to mix the view that you presented tonight of recognizing the nature of mind with everyday life. So, for example, relationships. For example, working with other types of sadhana practices that have ritual and form. How do you mix the view?
Okay. So I will answer the second question. It's easier first. So any practice sadhana we do, it has ultimately at the end the accomplishment stage. So I think every practice, different layers or different levels, but somehow there is always shamatha and vipassana, shine and laktong, development and accomplishment stage. Development and completion stage. So the sadhana practice, we do all these visualizations, deities, whatever, the mantra garlands and all this. At the end, everything dissolved. And then rest into the nature of mind. So I think there's always, at the end of any sadhana, any practice, resting in natural mind. So I don't think it really contradicts. And then I think the most important, I think if you receive the proper instruction and guidance, then I think it's important is there to work with your mind, trying to rest in the nature of mind. And I don't know whether I'll be able to answer the first question clearly or not, but I think that naturally when you have some kind of understanding of some experience of nature of mind, your negative emotions might naturally reduce. And then when there's less negative emotions, I think there's less to argue or fight among the couples. Or what, that was the question, right?
Yes, about relationships.
About relationships. Then maybe a good opportunity to meditate on patience also. Or understanding. You know? Also, Patu Rinpoche's story one time that one man is sort of meditating in the hermitage, and Patu Rinpoche asked him, "What are you meditating on?" He said, "Oh, I'm meditating on Zopa, patience." And then he whispered in his ear, "People like you and me can fool people these days." And he got so angry, "Why are you coming here and bothering me?" So I think as a practitioner, as a Buddhist, as a practitioner, when things go well, then we don't really know how good our practice or how much depth we risk when in practice. So when circumstances arise, that's the time I think we have to use. So sometime I think if you want to see some of how deep or how good you are, then some challenge maybe, something that will stir up your negative emotions, and then you can see whether you can handle it or not. And some of the Lojong practice, Lojong teaching, it almost like you have to look for a trouble. Almost like that. Not really you poke on somebody, but you almost look for a trouble, and you're fully ready to challenge any problem. So when the problem arises, so okay, now I can use the Lojong tactics against the negative emotions. So this is the main purpose of practice. So becoming a better practitioner, I have many friends, Westerner, Easterner, friends, disciple of Khyentse Rinpoche, many. I don't really see them levitating or having a hollow on the head, but I've seen them becoming a better human being, less attached to the worldly life. So I think that's the result of the practice. So I think the problem is if you can look at it as a challenge, being a Buddhist practitioner, not much fear. And of course, being a most important, I think, not much hope and fear. Okay.
Rinpoche, thank you so much for sharing the Dharma with us tonight.
Thank you.